What is going on at US Soccer? During the World Cup, the parents of a US soccer player were threatening the head coach Greg Berhalter. But what happened? Before we do get into the video, I need to mention that this video has been inspired by Zealand. If you don't know Zealand, I will leave the link to his video in the description below. Furthermore, while you are here, make sure to like the video, comment down below, and also subscribe to the channel. I'm also ill, so if I'm coughing during this video, please let me off. And also, I'm going to be saying soccer throughout this because it's called the US Soccer Federation. The game's called football. Right, in the run-up to the World Cup, a star of the national team side, Giovanni Reyna, was coming back from injury. He was informed by the head coach Greg Berhalter that his minutes would be drastically reduced. Now, Reyna was unhappy with this and he had a tantrum for a couple of days. He felt like he should play minutes, and even though he was coming back from the injury, he felt like he should have a bigger part in the side than he ended up having. Greg Berhalter went to him and he said, look, Gio, you either need to sort yourself out or leave the camp, at which Gio went, all right, I'll sort myself out. And he did. He stopped being in such a mood and he sorted himself out. However, the Reyna's parents didn't particularly agree with this. After the first game at the World Cup for the US, in which Reyna did not play, it's worth emphasising, Reyna's mum, Mrs. Reyna, was angry and refused to board the family and friends bus which had been allocated to her, which included Berhalter's family and friends. Yeah, she specifically said that she will not board that bus, implying that she won't board it because Berhalter's family and friends are on there. This was the same bus that Mrs. and Mr. Reyna had taken on the way to the game. However, because Reyna did not play, she refused to board it on the way back. The day after that game, Daniel Reyna, also known as Mrs. Reyna, goes to the organiser of the coaches, saying that once the tournament is over, I can make one phone call and give one interview, and his cool sneakers and bounce passes will be gone. Now, we'll reference what that means later on. However, I love how she's so angry and she's referencing the fact about his shoes. Well done, Danielle. Well done. 3 days later, there is a meeting between some of the higher-ups at the US Soccer who have, most of them have been sacked or left by now, I think, because of this situation. And the fact that it's a mess. It's such a mess. However, 3 days later, there was a meeting between some of the higher-ups at US Soccer and the Reyners, at which Claudio Reyna says, you guys don't even know what we know about Greg. Now, the reason we know all of this is because there has been an extensive report published by US Soccer about what happened at the World Cup. You can find it on the internet. I'll probably leave it in the description of this video as well if I do remember. Go and check that out because all these quotes and things, they are coming directly from there. All of this is factual and it's such a mess. What is the incident that the Reyners are talking about though? That incident is this. This incident, let's stress, happened in 1992, 30 years before the World Cup. Mrs. and Mr. Berhalter were in a nightclub at which things turned physical between the pair. Mrs. Berhalter hit Mr. Berhalter in the face before Mr. Berhalter pushed Mrs. Berhalter down and kicked her twice. Both parties did not require medical attention and neither of them chased legal action. Greg self-reported his actions to the head of the coach of the men's soccer team at the time, as did Mrs. Reyna with the head of the women's soccer team at the time, the day after it happened. Greg further went on to make efforts to apologise to Mrs. Berhalter while seeking counselling and volunteering at a women's prison. Greg felt incredibly bad about the incident, and with Mrs. Berhalter, well, now Mrs. Berhalter, requesting time and, for the relationship to take a break or even split up permanently, Greg respected that decision, and the pair did not come into contact until Mrs. Berhalter reached out to Greg 8 months after the incident. They only started to speak again when Mrs. Berhalter reached out. Greg Berhalter did never make any attempts to rekindle the relationship apart from to apologise in that time. Now, the reason why the Rayners know this is because Mrs. Rayner and Mrs. Berhalter both went to university together. They were both on the same team. So they've known each other for a long time. And obviously, as friends do, they speak about things. And these, Mr. and Mrs. Rayner, they talked every single day on the phone up until Giovanni Rayner was left out of that first game, at which point they did not speak. A 30-odd year relationship ruined over Giovanni Rayner not playing one football game because he is coming back from injury, let's stress. The Berhalters have been happily married since, and there were no differences in the story between the pair, and the US Soccer Federation now consider this incident to be closed. Now, what are the takeaways from this incident? First of all, the Rayners, they don't seem like very nice people. Giovanni Rayner was not involved in the blackmailing. It was never specifically said that, if you don't play him, we will do this. But it's close enough to blackmail him. I can't say they were blackmailing him, but it was close enough to it. Claudio and Daniel Rayner have not put themselves in the best position, and I can imagine their position as sort of being viewed as legends in the US Soccer Federation will be put under review. Greg Berhalter, however, can still become the new US soccer coach again after his contract ended at the end of the last World Cup. He is still in the running, and this incident has not had an effect on that. I know many US soccer fans don't want him to continue in the position. However, this incident has not impacted his running for that at all. And yeah, the Rayners are left with mud on their face. What do you make to this incident? Because wow, it's taken a long time to conclude. And the Rayners do not seem like very good people. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Once again, thank you to Zealand for the idea, and I'll catch you all again in the next video. See ya!